Yo, what's good, guys? We are back with the tier list content. I'm going to start with the pitchers this time. I think last time we finished with the pitchers, so we'll go in reverse order. We'll go pitchers, we'll go infield, we'll go outfield. Um, we got an insane content drop today. I think the game is probably in one of the healthier places that it has been the entire year. And a lot of that has to do with some of the new pitching we got. Righties, since the game has came out, have been pretty weak in general, pitching wise. And today we got a ton of good right-handed starting pitchers. We got some decent left-handed starting pitchers. Really, pitching as a whole took a big uptick. I am recording this before Tuesday, so I'm imagining for BR we'll get at least one pitcher that will be, probably good. Probably not top five at his position, be it starter or reliever, but it will probably be a good card. Hopefully, it's a good reliever. You're going to see in the tier list that relievers are a step behind starters at the moment. So I would look for in the coming weeks for them to probably start putting out some better relievers, especially because a lot of our best relievers in the game are set two cards. So we're going to need some set three guys going into set four, and then hopefully we get some decent set four guys. They need to kind of update relief pitching as a whole. A lot of the good relievers are about to expire. So before we get into it, I want to thank you guys for all the support. Channel's been going crazy. We're over 2,600 subs. We could be close to 27, depending on whenever this video goes up. I won't really know. This was recorded basically right after content dropped. So if you do enjoy the content, feel free to leave a like, even sub if you do enjoy the content and you have seen multiple of the videos. And I think that's enough waffling. Let's get into the tier list. So, some of these cards will drop in tiers as compared to the last tier list I did. Not because they got worse, but because their competition went up. Loop, I still think, is the best lefty specialist in the game. Probably wouldn't pitch with righties with him anymore just because people are kind of used to seeing him, especially righty lefty against him. But still, as a lefty specialist goes, still very good. Ottavino can be a good option, but he is unfortunately he has control issues. The arm slot is kind of a gimmick. After people get used to it, it's not that hard to hit. And I am realizing shows on updated their tier list, so that's cool. You'll love to see it. Lighter, one of the new cards, one of the new lefties I was referring to. I think he's going to be S tier. The way I'm going to organize S tier will be pretty much my bullpen because I don't think there's that many strong relievers and people I would consider putting in my top five starting pitchers in the game. So there'll probably be 6, 7, 8, something like that in S tier starter wise, and then everything else will kind of drip down from there. I think Leiter will not struggle with the control like his card says. I think his control is going to be pretty misleading. Chapman's still probably one of the better lefty specialists, still probably the only left-handed relief pitcher I'm somewhat comfortable pitching to righties with. So for that reason, I think he's still S. Wagner, not as good as a lot of people probably thought. Really, he is only marginally better than the core one. You would like to see him, like his control go a lot higher than where it's at right now. It's not the greatest, and he is kind of BP to some degree. Obviously, the fastball's fast, but everything else is not. Snell, awful 12-0 reward. Very funky like delivery, but other than that, he's got like a Joe Random pitch mix. Doesn't have outlier. We need to speed up a little bit. We got a lot of cards on this list. Bobby Miller, great budget option, outlier fastball. If you're balling on a budget, he can do the job. Doval, as far as a legend pitcher, probably A tier, probably fits in one of the better bullpen arms in the game if you are on those higher difficulties. Mize, another just solid option, can round out a weaker rotation. Chris Sale, a lot of people aren't going to like this. Gimmick pitcher. He's going to do great against some people. He's going to get lit up against others. Just kind of depends. And a lot of those lefty starters, like Kershaw, for instance, they are going to struggle because people have structured their lineup for like Randy and John Don. So in general, you're going to see a lot of righty and switch hitter heavy lineups. It's going to hurt these mediocre left-handed pitchers. When you're looking at the top end guys. So Kimbrel, I underrated Kimbrel in the past. His release is very funky, not traditional Craig Kimbrel type release. His pitches do some weird things. He's all right. The hits save him. But the hits do not save this card. This card is still hot garbage. Would not advise anybody uses this card. I don't think too many people grinded it. Yuri, basically a two-pitch pitcher. So for that reason, I'll argue he's somewhat close to Bobby Miller. Bobby's probably better, but that outlier sinker can still be tough to hit if the outlier procs at the right time. Felix, I really want to put S tier, and I think I'm going to. On high difficulties, he turns hitting into a pure guessing game, and against bad players that have to guess pitch often, he's completely dominant. All three of his pitches can be tunneled together. Actually love Felix. If he had the cutter like he did at the end of last year, it would be crazy. So, B tier, I can basically rename this the gimmick tier. Fernando is a gimmick pitcher. If he had 5 pitches, maybe you could argue like bottom A tier. He's a 4-pitch gimmick pitcher who does not throw fast. So he's going to get lit up. Not a very great card. This Framber surprises me. He's a very solid starter. Would I ever consider putting him in the best 5 in the game? Probably not, but he is on the outside looking in, and I do think he looks pretty solid. Garrett Cole, I kind of want to be pretty strict with. Doesn't do a lot well. I think if he had outlier, he'd be an easy A tier. But just, his pitches aren't too great. Maddox, I think his time has passed. I think he's still a solid option. A lot of people on like All-Star and stuff really like him, which is not really where he would thrive. Really, he's a true legend pitcher. But, not many people are there. This card, funky release. That's pretty much it. Has like a Joe Random pitch mix, but very funky release. Has an outlier sinker that can speed up at the wrong time and throw you way off. Very underrated card. Hilton, not very good. Probably bottom of B tier. He can bring up a bad rotation, the back end of a bad rotation. Not going to make one of the better rotations. DeGrom looks absolutely insane. I always like DeGrom cards, personally. I have never pitched bad with a DeGrom card in my life. I know a lot of other top-end guys do not like DeGrom whatsoever. I've never pitched bad with one, and now he has a sinker instead of that useless two-seam. I mean, this card is insane. The only way he would have got better is if they gave him the outlier sinker, or slider. I mean, there's no other starters in real life not named Yohan Duran. Topping out at like 95, 96 on their slider. If anybody deserves it, it would be DeGrom. Maple, C. This card sucks, man. I am sick of people telling me that he is decent. There's no redeeming factor. He throws BP. I do not like the card, but C's probably a little bit strict. Him and Snell, right? Snell's got the better release and doesn't throw, BP. Paxton has a slightly better pitch mix. It's really whatever. Joel, Payamps, very similar to Gregory Santos. I don't know how many of you guys have played Moonshot, but his common card has a really funky, weird release on high difficulties that's really going to mess with people because you already don't have long to read the ball, and if it's doing weird stuff out the hand, it's going to make it look even faster. This Musgrove card, I was very high on. I've seen him multiple times. I think he's BP. I've heard some people say he's better on Legend. I don't see it. I see no redeeming factor with this card. Everything he throws out the hand looks just like a meatball. It's crazy how bad that card is because I thought it would be a lot better. John Don, probably the second best starting pitcher in the game. DeGrom might challenge for the title. Somebody else on this list might also challenge that we'll get to in a minute. I think the Smoltz card's very underrated. Throws a hard fastball and a splitter. You can do a lot with that. You would be surprised what you can do with that online. I know not the greatest through nines, but would I rather pitch with Smoltz than all of these guys? Probably. Maybe Maddox. Maybe, we'll reunite the Brave starters. They do different things, but I'd say they're about equally effective. This is a very underrated bullpen piece. Everybody loved his WBC card, and maybe it's just everybody saw the WBC card too much. I'm not too sure, but he has the same pitch mix. You can still tunnel that circle change and sinker very nasty, like in such a good way with Lasagna over here. So I think he's great for that. Verlander still probably has an argument to be in the best rotation in the game. Is he for me? No, but he is, like I said, those 6, 7, 8 type of guys. He is one of them. If you still have him, I still think he's a good pitcher. Kenley, probably second best right-handed reliever in the game still. Another spot that probably needs improvement. SDS hopefully will start getting some better relievers out soon. Kerry Wood really gonna struggle with control, but has a decent pitch mix and has that outlier fastball. On these low difficulties, he's gonna be better than everybody else on this tier by far. But will really struggle on any higher difficulties. Lance, he's really only here because of his through nines, right? He's a decent Hall of Fame pitcher, but he doesn't throw too great of pitches, and I don't know, he doesn't throw very hard. But the through nines look great. Luis probably be an all-star demon pitcher. The release is very funky, right? If you need him to come into a game and give you 4 good innings and then turn it into a bullpen game, he's a very good starter for that. But as far as going 6, 7, 8 and having dominant outings, he's probably not going to do that against good players. But I think he can absolutely feast on like all-star players for sure. Stroman, Hall of Fame guy, Hall of Fame legend pitcher, more so a legend pitcher. Not great speed differentials, not the best through nines. Should be a control freak. I found that he's not exactly that, but not a bad card whatsoever. Here we go. Mo, the best right-handed reliever for my money in the game. Basically the exact same pitcher as Kenley. Takes 1 to 2 miles an hour off the cutter, but has like 20, 30 more control. His pars are way smaller. You can dot that cutter anytime you want, anywhere you want, and that's very valuable, and he has that over Kenley on those higher difficulties. Mark Mulder, left-handed Maddox. So for that reason, I'm actually going to ding him, right? Because a lot of people have those switch hitters. They have right-handed hitters in their lineup. He's going to get lit up. I mean, you're basically throwing Greg Maddux that throws like a couple miles an hour faster, and you're throwing him into, a slaughterhouse, basically. You're asking to get him lit up if you're pitching him. Martin Diego has an argument. He's like Verlander. I just got him. I just got the 300 cards. I think he has an argument for like Verlander, where he's like a 6, 7, 8 type of guy. I don't know if he makes the best rotation in the game, but I'm using him because he's a fun card. Matt Cain on higher difficulties, not terrible. The through nines are very good on him. The sinker control is absolutely abysmal. If he could place the sinker better, I think he would have an argument for being an S tier. But the par on his sinker is half the strike zone. So that is very unfortunate for him, holds him back quite a bit. Kelleher, just another budget option. It's worth shouting out. I think he is solid in a pinch, but also a set 2 card. Speaking of set 2 cards, Nolan, I think everybody's kind of got over the gimmick at this point. I don't think he's good enough, like through nines and control-wise, to offset having that bad pitch mix. You might remember the chase card. Last year, a lot of top-end players really like that. He could kind of dot a little bit more, and I don't know. This Nolan's, he's okay. More so borders on gimmick pitcher, just because if somebody can't hit an outlier fastball, then he's going to be dominant. Otherwise, he's going to be bad. Skeens knocking on the door for the best rotation in the game. Basically DeGrom, except he has a cutter instead of a sinker now. So I do like Skeens for that reason. Not a huge fan of a slurve slider combo. I'd rather you have one than both, preferably the slider. But Skeens is solid. He is one of those guys that kind of fall off towards the end of a rotation. Randy, still the de facto number 1. The only pitcher in the game worth wildcarding maybe next season. Will I be doing it? No. But I'm sure some people will. Goose, I have become lower on. I think he's probably creeping towards B tier. Still got the good through nines, but the control is still an issue. He's going to hang the slurve, he's going to hang the sinker, and he's going to hang the changeup. And so when you can only really control one of your pitches guaranteed, it's pretty rough. So for that reason, I'm going to knock him. And here is the other guy that probably is debatable with DeGrom for second or third best pitcher in the game, depending on how you want to order these. Roy Halladay, right? He is the quintessential Hall of Fame legend pitcher. He was dominant last year. He got that little program captain card. And then he got that World Series award, I think, at the end of last year, and he basically ran the high ranks. He is a control freak that can put the ball wherever he wants, whenever he wants. He is what Greg Maddux wishes he was. and he just throws so many good pitches. Rube, I think kind of a gimmick pitcher. I think he's solid. I don't think he's a bad option by any means. Do I think he's worth 300K? No, not even close. Sandy, in theory, should be a better pitcher than he is. If you match up against some people that can't touch an outlier sinker, he's going to look very dominant. But all his other pitches are pretty bad, and so that holds him back quite a bit. And here we go, the biggest disappointment of the year for me. I still think he can be good, but he's kind of got that like Bobby Miller syndrome from last year. You got to get Satchel going. He has to get confident. Those pars have to shrink. I mean, he has another syndrome. He's got the Bob Gibson syndrome, where his sinker on those higher difficulties, the par is half the strike zone. Even if you throw it perfect, you have basically no idea where it's going to end up at. And that's a problem at those higher ranks, playing those better players that want to hit certain pitches and key in on your tendencies. You need to be able to put the ball where you want, when you want. Scott Barlow, just another budget option worth shouting out. I'd say he's honestly probably equal with Ottavino. I think a lot of people overlook this card just because he was in a cheap pack. Still a decent option, not going to wow anybody, but he's solid out the pen. And he can throw people off. I don't think a lot of people have seen Scott Barlow that much. Speaking of throwing people off, it's pretty much the only attribute that McClanahan has that he does well. Basically, him and Blake Snell are twins. Both kind of have like funky left-handed releases with like Joe Random pitch mixes. So he's fine. Not going to do anything amazing. Definitely nowhere close to being one of the better starters in the game. So, Ohtani, a little contentious. I think his control's a little better than what his card says. Him and Skeens are going back and forth for me for like that last spot in my personal rotation. And it just depends on who gets lit up first. I'm going to start them back to back, and whoever gets lit up first is out. But they are very similar cards. You can kind of see a theme with some of the top end starters. Screwball, decent little shout. I think he's probably a little bit better than Mize. I think he has an argument for being in the back end of a very good rotation. He should not probably be cracking the best rotation in the game. And you could say a very similar thing about my guy Tom Terrific here. He's in that second tier of starters that are very good starters, but they're not competing for the title of best in the game. Hoffman, very underrated reliever, changes speeds very well. Control freak reliever. If you're starting somebody that's like Nolan or DeGrom or Randy or Verlander, if you're starting somebody with that outlier pitch that's going to speed people up, Hoffman can be a very good change of pace guy to kind of slow your opponent's bat down for an inning or two, and then you bring in like Chapman or somebody dominant that has a fast fastball, and you're good. Walker Buehler's been BP in the show for years. He continues to be BP in the show. But, he is probably equal to these guys. You probably can find success with him if you pitch well enough. This is the wrong Yunior Cano card, but he has the All-Star one, which is basically identical. A good option, just depends on how often that outlier on the sinker procs, right? Are you sitting here throwing at 95 down the middle, or are you throwing at 101 in a corner? And that's pretty much what all of his success is dictated off of. He got lit up for me. This monthly one in particular got lit up for me. But he has pitched well against me when I've seen him. So there's definitely something there. Zach Gallen just does not look very good. I would rather use all of these guys over him. Just a very default pitch mix, and he doesn't really have the through nines to save him. If you pitch really, really, really good with that pitch mix, you could probably make the argument for him being A. But me personally, I don't see it. And then this Wheeler card, man. I mean, this is such an underrated card. I think this went under the radar a lot yesterday. You can see about average through nines for the most part. Probably above average walks. Above average clutch, I would say. You can see Showzone actually has velo difference now. And they have control on the pitches. You can see very good control on his sinker. I almost never look at break stats. It doesn't really change too much in game. For me, arm slot does more for how the pitch looks out the hand than the break ever will. But in general, this is a very solid card. This is a slept on card. If this card had outlier, I think he would be in contention for best starters in the game. Without it, I think he is at the very, very, very bottom of S tier or the top of A tier. But this is such a solid card for like 20K. You're not going to beat that too much. But that is the updated pitcher tier list. A lot of people have been requesting it. We got an insane content drop. I think the new pitchers that slot into the S tier are Roy Halladay for sure. There's no doubt in that. DeGrom, most likely for most people. Some people may struggle with him, those same guys that struggle. Really, the key with DeGrom is don't throw the curveball that much. You should not be showing it more than like 4 times a game, probably. Unless you're at a low rank and you're just bouncing them and people are swinging at them. It's not a good pitch. It's always been his worst pitch. The less you throw it, the better you'll be with him. Leiter. I think Leiter is going to be sneaky good. I mean, obviously, he has a World Series award, so a lot of people are expecting him to be good. He basically has a no-hitter cards, like hits through 9, and the strikeouts per 9 are very good also. But the walks are low, which is going to be a red flag for a lot of people. But I'm imagining with these controls on a lot of these pitches for him, especially the sinker, right? 97 control. You want to talk about fake stat. This walk stat is so fake for that. He is going to probably dot that sinker in a way that Satchel doesn't. I think that's going to be the main difference, right? If we pull up Satchel here, you can see higher walks, but that sinker has 85 control, which is one of the reasons why its par is so big. So I think Leiter's going to have a lot of value. I think he's going to be absolutely painting that sinker. Martin Diego is going to start to become more available for a lot of people. Obviously, only a madman was taking him with one of their earlier set choices. But if you're getting all 3, why not? He is solid. He could drop. I'm not sure. I haven't necessarily used him yet, but the pitch mix looks good. He has outlier. Should be solid enough. And then some solid A tier cards as well. Wheeler, obviously. Framber, free card, everybody can go get. Payamps from the, I don't know if I'm saying that right, from the monthly program. And then, we got flash sales on pretty much all of these headliners. Absolutely crashed all of these cards way down. They are way cheaper now. But yeah, guys, that is going to be the tier list. I'll give you one last look through. Feel free to pause, do whatever you want. And that is the tier list. Those are the cards I think you should be using moving into ranked, moving into co-op in the upcoming seasons. Obviously, we will be rotating from set 2 to set 3 and 4 soon. But in general, we are looking good into the foreseeable future, especially with right-handed starting pitching. And that's going to be it. Feel free to leave a like, leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, peace.